Greetings everyone! In this video I will be showing and telling you about 5 games or game series that are somewhat hidden gems to the mainstream, but can be really fun, especially with a good friend or possibly a significant other to play with. Before we get to the top 5 itself, I need to give you some disclaimers about these games and this video. So most of these games are doable in a couple of hours, maybe at most like 20 or a little over, and at least like 1 or 2 hours, maybe some of them. These games are inherently single player and they actually can't be played as a multiplayer, but I find that these games are much more enjoyable when you have a friend or, as I said, a significant other to play with. These are also usually quite cheap, and if they're not, they're at least on sale very often in Steam summer and winter sales especially. This list is also not in any way comprehensive. These are my opinions and the games that I enjoyed very much. Enjoy the list. So in the 5th seed we have a game called Discolored. This is quite a little known game, released in 2019 by James Cudby. On Steam the price is around 6.5 euros, so not too expensive, also discounted often. Game is actually probably one of the shortest, even shortest maybe in this whole list. It's only a couple of hours. You can beat it in an hour, I think, but if you take your time and appreciate the environments and so on, you probably get 2 to 3 hours from this. You can select whether you want to point and click or free roam. Point and click is fine. Free roam helps in certain situations when you need to go from room to room a lot in certain parts of the game. It's a bit quicker, but if you are not in a hurry and you just want the simplicity of point and click, you can certainly beat the game with that. You can also change the setting on the fly. As I said, very beautiful, very atmospheric game. Also, the idea is try to not to spoil much, but you work with colors, let's say that. The puzzles are very much surrounded with playing with colors in the world. All in all, a very good game. I would give it a 5 out of 5 if it was a little bit longer, but as it is quite short and you can beat it in a very little time, I can only give it 4 out of 5. The 4th place goes to The Eyes of Era, if that's how it's pronounced, which was released in 2016 by 100 Stones Interactive. The game goes for 12.5 euros. As for the base game on Steam, and a little over 20 euros for deluxe edition that comes with soundtrack and some art stuff. The game is especially beautiful. It has great lighting, and especially in the first part of the game, which you can see in the video in the background, when you get to the keep itself, which is where this game is based in mostly. There are some great lighting effects also in the keep itself. This game is quite long, especially compared to the 1st or the 5th place holder Discolored. It's very challenging, probably the most challenging game on this whole list. So I wouldn't probably recommend it if you haven't played any games of this type, this kind of point and click puzzler. But if you have some experience or are up for the challenge, I guess you certainly can try this and maybe come back to it if you can't beat it in the first time. If you like point and click puzzlers, I think this game is actually, let's say, 4.5 out of 5.
Rusty Lake, spring 1860. James Van de Boom arrived at Rusty Lake. His uncle had just passed away under mysterious circumstances. James was his uncle's only heir. He had no idea of the events that would change his life.
third place goes to the Rusty Lake series, which was originally released in 2016, meaning the first game of the series, by coincidentally Rusty Lake Game Studios. The games cost just a couple euros a piece, or around 16 euros for the bundle, which contains all the Rusty Lake games for the series and also 3 other games from the makers of the Rusty Lake series. Which are also, I think, puzzle games, so you get a lot of value there. The games are Rusty Lake Hotel, Rusty Lake Paradise, and Rusty Lake Roots. They are following kind of timeline, at least I think they are. I couldn't quite follow it up because there was some gaps between when we played those games, and so I couldn't really keep up. But as singular games, each one of them were very great. They are kind of based in this eerie world with quite beautiful and also fun cartoony art style. The story is quite gritty and weird at places, but if you like that sort of thing, this probably is, it's just a game for you. Easy to get into, the controls are very simplistic. The games are not too long as single games, but as for the whole series they combine to a quite a lengthy experience. The games are also paced so that you can play them as nice bite-sized chunks, so you don't have to play it hours and hours and get burnt out. I would give this game, or this game series, probably same as the Eyes of Era, as 4.5 out of 5. Now to the second place, which goes to House of Da Vinci, meaning House of Da Vinci 1 and 2 actually. The games are similar, but of course different games, and the first one is sort of a prologue to the second one. The game is quite story heavy for a puzzle game, which is can be a good thing. At least I enjoy that story bit quite a lot in that game. First game was released in 2017 by Blue Brain Games. Price is around 20 euros a pop on Steam, so 40 if you plan to purchase both games. I would in this case probably recommend to wait for sale. Even though the games are great, I still probably would wait for sale or buy them somewhere where they might be cheaper. The game has absolutely amazing atmosphere. As the name suggests, you interact with the Leonardo da Vinci himself in the game, but you don't play as him. You play as a kind of his, I don't know, prodigy of some sort, and you help him in various ways. Let's say that much. The game is certainly a challenge. The puzzles are quite intuitive and there are good variety in the puzzles also. Beautiful graphics, as is quite typical for this type of games. Not needlessly frustrating as some of these games can be. So the game would get 5 out of 5, but actually only thing keeping me from giving it 5 out of 5 is the quite a steep price for it. So I will give 4.9 out of 5. Okay, so the first place goes to the Room series, as probably many of you, if you like the genre, probably have guessed also. The Room series, as for the first game, was published and released in 2014 by Fireproof Games. There are 4 games in the Room series, at least for the normal games that you can play on PC. The Room 1, 2, 3 and The Room Old Sins, which is the newest addition. The games cost between 5 to 8 euros a pop and a little over 21 euros if you buy the collection pack on Steam. They are also, as all of these games on this list, pretty much discounted in almost every annual Steam sale that happens. There are quite a lot of reasons why I chose The Room to be the number 1 on this list. But the main things are, I think, the fact that The Room is actually quite rough looking, but also in a sense very beautiful and crisp. The sound design is amazing. Everything you do in the game has pretty much some kind of sound effect attached to it. Sometimes quite minimalistic, other times theatrical even. And yeah, the story in these games, or these games, all of them, is somewhat Lovecraftian even. There are some supernatural stuff happening, at least seeming to happen. The game is quite vague with the story, unlike the Da Vinci actually. But one thing I have to say is that the Da Vinci games and the Room games are extremely similar in the gameplay wise. The story is absolutely different, but the gameplay is very similar, and if you like the other one, there's a good chance you like the other one too. Only thing I can think of that would make you dislike one of them is if you don't like, let's say, Leonardo da Vinci for some reason, or you can't stand any Lovecraftian type of vibes in a game. If I had to rate the games, the room games one by one, I'd say the order would be from worst to best: Room 1, then Room 2, then The Old Sins, and then Room 3. The Room 3 is the best point-and-click puzzle game I have ever played, or I guess I had a quite debate in my head about whether I should say this or not, but actually the House of Da Vinci 2 and The Room 3 are the best point-and-click puzzle games I have ever played. The Room 3 winning by just a sliver. But the Room series as a whole and the price point also is the factor that made me choose the Room to be the number 1 series and game on this list. The Room gets 5 out of 5. If I could give it a 6 out of 5, I would. So that was my top 5 of point-and-click puzzle games. I hope that you got some suggestions, and keep in mind that you certainly can play these alone as well, but I find that these games are also fun for the let's say the spectator who can also participate in solving the puzzles, which is the main part in all of these games. Yes, I hope you have fun playing some of these games or all of these games, and I also hope that you have a great day. Bye.